So for the, I think, umpteenth time, I'm just going to reiterate, I will not have my camera on for the video, just to make sure I'm not covering any of the buttons during today's demo. So it's not that I don't want you to see my lovely face. It's just want to make sure everybody can see the buttons after we're done recording today. So, all right. So hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's presentation. This demo is specifically for department chairs, and they can run reports out of Watermark Student Learning and Licensure, as well as how to use reporting in Watermark's course evaluations and surveys. If you attended the department chair meeting a while back where OLS demonstrated the reporting functions or saw the evals for admins video on YouTube, this may already be familiar to you, but it's a great refresher. So for today's session, we're looking to accomplish the following. Department chairs will distinguish the difference between the various reports you can generate in Watermark, SL, and L. By the end of today's session, department chairs will be able to pull reports from the system using one or more of the options demonstrated, as well as department chairs will be able to run reports in course evals and surveys when needed. So after today's session, we'll be granting those who attended this training admin permission so they can use the reporting features for their respective department or departments. A key but obvious factor that I want to mention with reporting in Watermark. If instructors are not linking assignments to Watermark or are not having students submit work through Watermark, there will be no assessment data to pull from the system. We're happy to develop assessment workflows if instructors want to utilize Watermark outside of the standard workflow of student submissions. For example, our English department has an oral presentation assessment in Watermark that only requires the instructor to log into the external site and complete a rubric. This is called an observational assessment. Another workflow example allows for peer review option for students to grade or review another student's work before it's passed on to the instructor. Additionally, there is an assisted assessor workflow, say that 5 times fast, where multiple instructors can grade a student's work. In most cases, though, instructors may want to use the standard workflow where it's just the student's work submitted to the instructor. If instructors are having issues accessing current assignments or need assistance in using the system, please have them contact us as soon as possible before the end of the semester. Now that that is out of the way, let's make our way over to Watermark. Okay, so once you log into Watermark, on the, bless you, someone sneezed in the background. So once you log into Watermark, on the left side menu, reports will appear as an option near the bottom of the list. So when we click on this will pull up the reports page, and you'll be able to reference back to any reports that you have saved to your account. So they would appear on here. So to generate a report, you're going to click on Create New Report on the right-hand side here. And there are 4 report types in student learning and licensure. So there is the comparative data report. Comparative data report is essentially a hybrid between the rubric and standards reports. So let me demonstrate what that looks like. So for our report, we're just going to do a quick demo title here. And next, you'll want to select the filters for the report that you're generating. So for each of these, you have to add a filter. So you can't select multiple filters within the screen here. So for this example, the first filter I'm going to select is an activity. And let's say I wanted to pull the reports or the assessment data from counseling 553. So I would select all of those activities for today's purposes. And then I would hit apply in the bottom right corner. And let's say I wanted to add an additional filter for this. So I'm going to select term. for this example. Hit next. And let's say I just wanted to look at the summer 2023 assessments. So I would select that term, hit apply. Okay, and then next up, I'm going to select rubrics. So for this one, there's only one rubric that's attached to these activities. So I'm going to select that rubric, but you can also search for a specific rubric if there are multiple that are appearing for your account. So next up, we're going to add some data columns. With the data columns, you can only select 6 options, just to make everybody aware. So for this example, I'm going to select course, the activity, the performance level, and standard, whether it was met or not met, as well as the standard ID. So this is where that hybrid format comes into play, where it's a comparative data is a hybrid between rubric reports and standard reports. So after that, I'm going to select apply. And if we keep scrolling down here, we can select the different measures that we want to generate for this report. So just to show all of the options, I'm just going to select all of these. And then in the upper right corner, I would select Run Report. And yes, I'm sure I want to run the report. So here's an example of what this report would look like. We can see the course, the activity, as well as the performance level for the rubric that was selected, and whether the students met or not met the standards that were attached to the rubric. You can see the standard element that was attached to the rubric. You can see how many students scored for that rating in the rubric itself. And if you wanted to see which students scored those particular elements of the rubric, you would click on the assessment count. For privacy reasons, I will not be clicking on that, but it would appear in a window on the right-hand side where you can see which students scored at what level for those standards or rubric elements. And you can see the element point range as well as the rubric point range. So after you generate this report, you have a couple of different options. So you can export the report as an aggregated CSV file or disaggregated. You can also save the report if you want to come back to it at a later point. So I'm just going to save this for now. And if at any point you wanted to make adjustments to the report that you just generated, you would just hit Edit Report. And then you could change your mind in terms of the filters that you added, if you wanted to swap out the rubric or any of the data columns for the report. Once you make those changes, you would just hit Run Report again, and then it would regenerate that report with the changes that you made. So that is the comparative data report. So I'm going to close out of that. Okay. So next up, we have rubric reports. So once again, you would go to Create New Report on the right-hand side here. Select Rubric Report. And my screen is slowing down a little bit on me, and my Wi-Fi has been a little slow today. All right, so then next up, so on this screen, you would select the rubric that you want to view or create a report for. So once again, I'm going to select this counseling one, which is 553 Group Counseling Dynamics. And you can select multiple rubrics if you would like to generate a report that is covering the basis for multiple rubrics, or you can just select one if you choose to do so. And for the query, you're going to give it a title. So I'm going to say Demo Rubric Report. Except I'm going to use proper capitalization here. Okay, so then in the Add Filter dropdown, you'll see that there's a variety of options you can choose from. So once again, I'm going to select Term. And then I would select the term I want to use. You can also add multiple terms if you would like to see how students are performing over time in a certain course or with a certain rubric. For today's purposes, I'm just going to use one example. Not that one. There we go. Okay. So to add an additional filter, I would just go add filter and then select, let's say course. And I'm going to select all because I want to see all courses that have used this rubric. Once again, in the upper right corner, you would select run. And you'll see something that looks like this, where it has a bar chart of how students performed at the different elements for the rubric. There's also some color coding, so you can see how those students performed with those different assessments. So for example, the turquoise color here means the students performed at a distinguished level. The blue indicates proficient. Yellow indicates novice. And I believe we only have one down here that shows unsatisfactory. So, and if there is a non-applicable element for the rubric, that would also appear in this list. So if you keep scrolling below here, you can see an S1 icon. So this is the standard linkage for the element of that rubric. So you can see what standards the students are performing at here as well. And I believe if you click on, I don't want to click on this and then show student scores, but I believe if you click on this, you can see the students' names as well. So let's see. And if you keep scrolling down for the total rubric score, you can see the number of assessments, the mean and standard deviation. If you wanted to filter by specific standards, you can click on standards here, and then that will pull up any elements that are linked to that specific standard. If you wanted to add an additional query to your rubrics report, so you can see how students performed in, say, summer 2023 versus fall 2023, you would click Add Query. And you would just go through those similar steps that you did for the first query. So if I wanted to say fall 2023, I would select term, fall, and let's say course. I'm going to select all. And then in the upper right, select run. And so you'll see here right now, we don't have any scores for fall 2023, but if there was a set of scores to show an example for, that would appear as its own bar chart underneath the other, the initial query that we built. So, and you can also see that in this element here, where it has the different levels of the rubric, the mean, standard deviation, as well as with the total rubric score, you can see that number of assessments, mean, and standard deviation here. So once you build your report and you're satisfied with how it looks, you can export it as a CSV file. You can export it as a PDF, or you can save the report and come back to it at a later date. So depending on how many elements or how many performance levels you have for your rubric, it might be better to do a CSV file versus a PDF. If you have a large number of scoring elements that you're using for your rubric, the PDF may appear a little bit cramped, so the CSV file might be the best option for you in order to see all of those different levels and how the students are scoring. And actually, before I forget, so with this percentage here for the rubric element, if you click on this, you can also see the student scores on how many or which students scored for distinguished, novice, so on and so forth. So let's go back to the reports page here. Okay, so next up, we have standards report. Essentially, the screen is the same as rubrics, with the exception of you're selecting a set of standards rather than the rubric. So let's do standards report demo. Just gonna put the date on here because I think I have a couple that are titled that way. So once again, you would select the filters for the standards report. You could select term. And course, or any of the options that are listed there, you could select those and then select run. So I actually have one that's saved already that has all the filters and everything built in it. So let me just pull that up really quick. So here you can see what standards the students were assessed on, whether they met or they did not meet the standards that were linked to a series of activities or rubrics. And once again, you can export it as a CSV file, you can export it as a PDF, or you can save it to your account. Once again, to see which students scored at whether they met or they did not meet the standard levels, you would just click on the pie chart here, and that will pull up the students and their scores. So once again, for privacy reasons, I won't be showing what they actually scored, but that's how you would do that. You would click on the pie chart, and then it would pull up the students who met or did not meet those standards. Okay. And if you wanted to filter out any unnecessary standards that you're pulling reports for, you would click on the standard dropdown on the right-hand side here, and then you would select the standards that you wanted to add or deselect them to remove them from the report. Okay. So the last report option that I don't think a lot of folks are going to be using, but it is something I wanted to mention. So a time logs report is a feature in field placement management and Watermark where you can run reports. You can run reports based on a course section, or you can run reports for individual students. So for example, if I wanted to look at the time logs for my OLS course section, I would select section and then, yeah, I think it's OLS, and then hit search. And you can see I have a few options here. So if I wanted to look at the time logs for my Summer 2 course, I would select that course and then run report in the upper right corner. And here I can see how many hours my students submitted time logs for co-teaching. For example, with this, there's also a counseling session, observation, planning, professional development, and so on and so forth. So that would show me the students, the number of hours and minutes that they completed those time logs for. And if I wanted to search by student, I can hit this little toggle here on the right-hand side. And that shows me which student completed what hours. In this course, there's only one student, so that's why you're just seeing the one here, but it would pull up the list for those students that were in that course section. If I go back to the time logs section here, if I wanted to search for a specific student, I would select student, enter their name, click the checkbox, and then run report. And in this case, it pulls up all of the time logs that the students have submitted through various courses that they're taking that are listed in Watermark. So the student needs to catch up on their time logs, it looks like. Okay, so those are the 4 different reports that you can generate in Watermark. So let me just go back to my slideshow really quick. Okay, so Why is reporting in student learning and licensure important if results can be pulled into planning and self-study? So with planning and self-study, that is going to be a tool that we're using later on for SLOAs and SOARs. But the reporting features in student learning and licensure are very helpful for evidence building, for program or professional accreditations at varying points during the year that don't necessarily align with the annual SLOA timeframe. It's also an additional resource for evidence building for SLOAs anytime during the year to see if SLOs are being met or how to refine teaching in response to unmet objectives for current or next assessment cycles. It's also easier reporting for instructors or department chairs to pull data for department or division meetings that focus specifically on rubric or standards to see how students are performing. So that was one of the big issues that we had with Chalk and Wire, where folks needed to reach out to an admin for the system in order to pull assessment data. With Watermark, instructors can do it at their course level and department chairs can do it for their entire department. So it makes it much easier. You don't need to worry about a middleman. You can pull the reports when you need to. So it's a great resource to see how students are doing rather than waiting until the end of the year to see how students are doing. Okay. So before I shift gears to course evaluations and surveys, are there any questions about the reporting features I just demonstrated with student learning and licensure? I see some chat questions. Oh, okay. Looks like Jen took care of that one, so that's all set.
I'm on it.
You're a champion. All right, so if there aren't any questions, I'm going to go ahead and shift gears to course evaluations. So let me just pull up. Oh, spoilers. Okay. Just clicking around in a couple boxes here. Sorry, folks. All right. So admins, to access course evaluations for your departments and programs, you can go into Canvas or go to the external site on the St. Rose login. I'll be going through the external site as it's easier to demonstrate instead of going through the Canvas portal, which makes it a very tiny window. If you are also an instructor, there will be a drop-down menu on the right-hand side where you can toggle between both views as an admin or an instructor. So to build out reports, you'll want to switch to the admin view. To view results from an evaluation project, you'll go to the results drop-down tab. Excuse me. And then go to project results. And this will give you a list of completed evaluation periods or projects. You can use the search function to look for a specific project and or select the name of the project in the list. So for example, if I wanted to look at my integration survey, I would search for that, hit search, and then open that project. So once you open the project, there's multiple ways that you can aggregate your data and generate reports. So the first option is going to be the hierarchy level. So this goes overall, this pulls overall results in the hierarchy, and you can select the department or departments you wish to view. So if you are a department chair, you will only be able to select the view results for your department. So after you've selected the department you wish to view, you have multiple options for exporting the reports. So let me just pull this really quick. So you have detailed report. Detailed report provides bar graphs and tables of each question the students answered. Detailed report and comments, it provides that same set of bar graphs and tables for each question, along with comments that were submitted by the students. The short report provides exclusively tables of averages for each rating for the questions answered. The short report and comments provides those same tables of averages for each rating for the questions answered, along with comments submitted by the students. And the raw data report, this option provides a CSV file or a spreadsheet of the data that's accumulated for that project, whereas the other options mentioned produce PDF exports. This option does not include comments in the spreadsheet, so the raw data file here. So let's see, is that yes. So in this example, this is what a detailed report would look like. So you can see how many students answered the specific questions, at what percentage. You can see the means of what the numeric weight of the question was. And you can see how many, what the response rate was overall for the evaluation period, as well as the mean, standard deviation, and median. For this, you can also see the response rate at the top here, as well as the hierarchy level. So this is, and if there were comments for the survey, that would be in underneath the bar chart here. This is an example of the short report. So it just has the question, the number of responses, and the percentage of how many users responded with which question. The numbers here, that is the numeric weight of the question that was posed to the user, as well as you can see the mean, standard deviation, and median. So, and it's very tiny, so I will zoom in a little bit here. But the scale lets you know what the response was or what the answer choice was for the scale that's in the top here. Okay, so that is the hierarchy level report. So next up, we have the course section report that we can generate. So if you want to view specific courses, you would select the course sections tab, and then you would search for the course using either the code or the title. You can also select the hierarchy level, but if you're only attached to one, you would just be looking for that one specifically. So for this example, I'm going to use demo. Okay, so for this here, I want to use my sandbox option. If I click on the down arrow on the view tab here, we have those same questions, or I'm sorry, the reports that I mentioned with the hierarchy level. We have detailed report, which is that bar chart. We have the detailed report and comments, short report and comments, response report. This is, let's take a look at this. So you can see how many students responded to the survey. As you can see for this one, only one student responded to the survey and there was only one question. So it would have multiple questions and you can see how many students responded to the survey. Okay, so in addition to the response report, we have that same raw data file that you can pull into a spreadsheet. Once again, that doesn't include any comments that were submitted by the students. And in the last option here, we have feedback. So feedback is a way for department chairs to communicate with instructors directly on the evaluations that they receive from students. So, and the instructor also has the option to respond back to the department chair or the admin, which is very handy. This might be really helpful when folks come up to tenure. And you can also export a PDF of the results feedback and that communication between the department chair and the instructor. So let's take a look at the detailed report for the sandbox course here. Okay, so once again, For the detailed report, it pulls up that bar chart on the right-hand side here. You can see the frequency of what students responded for each question. And you can also see the response rate for this course specifically. So in this case, we only had one student that filled out the survey out of 3 students. So you can see that this course had very low response rate. So, and once again, you can see the mean, standard deviation, and median for the evaluation. Yes. All right, so next up we have by instructor. So for this, you can search for a specific instructor in the project for the course evaluations. Okay. So when you search for the instructor, you can see the course that was evaluated during that evaluation period. And once again, if you go to the view drop-down arrow here, you can pull those specific reports that, the detailed report, the short report, the response report, so you can see how many students responded to the survey for this instructor. You can pull that Excel spreadsheet, as well as you can provide direct feedback to the instructor. There is also the option for doing evaluations for TAs, but that's something we're not utilizing right now. But if it is something we do in the future, you can generate a similar report for a TA using the by TA option here. Okay, so let's say we wanted to get a scope for multiple departments across multiple evaluation periods. So you would select the results drop-down menu again, and you would select Report Builder. So the My Reports tab is previously saved reports that you have run through the system if you would like to revisit them. Much like the results page, you can break up the reports by hierarchy, as well as courses and instructors. So let's take a quick look at the Areas tab. So for area, you'll select the department or departments you wish to view. So for this example, I'm just going to do the College of St. Rose, then select Apply. And then next you would select the project or projects that you want to see the results or to build the report for. So I'm going to use this integration survey. And if there are specific questions that you want to select, you would use the questions box to select, each question that you want to build the report from. So select Apply. And the last required field for building a report is grouping. So this could be the overall hierarchy, the area and the project, area and instructor, or area and course. For this example, I'm just going to use project. And then you'll scroll up and the run button is on the opposite side. So it's on the left side in this case. So you would select run. Okay, and you can see how many for each department, how students responded for this survey in particular. So it looks like for this one question, each of the departments was successful in completing the evaluation here. We have the percentage of the students that responded yes, and the number of students that submitted that response to this survey. You can see that here as well as on the right-hand side. So out of the number of total respondents for the specific department, about 10% completed the survey. And once again, you can see that mean and standard deviation on the right-hand side here. Okay. Okay, So if we wanted to look at the aggregated results, so the combined results here, that would pull up. So if there were multiple questions, we could just see how many students responded to the survey in its entirety using the aggregated results. We have the choice to save the survey, or I'm sorry, save this report and come back to it later. We can delete this report if we don't need it. You can also export it as an Excel or a PDF file. And if we did save this report, demo, we also have the option to share it with other individuals in our school. So there's two different ways that you can do this. You can search for users in the system. So if I wanted to add Jen to this report, yay, I would search for Jen and then click the checkbox to apply her name and send this report to. Or I can also use the email function to send it. Let's say if we needed to send a report to an accreditor or something, we could add their email to this sharing page here. For today's example, I'm just going to use Rebecca's email. Okay, so then I would add the email address in there, select add email addresses. And if I wanted to include a message, I would write the message in here. And then I would click save to send the report to another user or to an email address. And I can see when they accessed the report. On this screen, it shows last viewed. So right now, because I just sent it, it will say never. But if you send it to somebody and they open it, you'll see the date and I believe timestamp of when they open the report. So if you need to share results, that's something that you can do through Watermark, which is really handy. So let's go back to my reports. So we covered areas. There's also projects. So a lot of the screens are the same. It's a lot of the same functionalities, but it just is based on the tab that you're selecting essentially. So with the course evaluation project, I would select the project or projects that I want to view or build a report for. I would select the question or series of questions that I want to add to the report, as well as the grouping. So for this, it would be project, project instructor, or project in course. So I'm just going to select project and then select run on the left-hand side. Okay, so it looks like with this question result, we have just about 98% said that the integration worked, and then 2% that said no. I think we know that they were full of it. So they're okay. So aggregated results. This will show you the total number of the folks that responded and the percentage of, how many could have responded, as well as the mean standard deviation and how each of those folks responded to the questions. Once again, you can save the report, you can delete the report, you can create a copy of the report if you'd like, or you can export it as a spreadsheet or a PDF file. So with the courses tab, you can search for a specific course. So if I wanted to search for my demo course again, I wouldn't search there, I would put it in here. And I would select that course, or if there was multiple courses that I wanted to select, I could do that in here as well. Hit apply. Once again, select the question. as well as the grouping. So for this, I'm going to do course and project, and then select run. Okay, and I can see that all the students in this course, they responded yes to this question. I can see how many students responded out of what number, at what percentage, the mean, standard deviation, so on and so forth. And same thing with the instructors tab. You're searching for an instructor, you're selecting the questions as well as the grouping. There are some other options down here that you can select. But once you select all those options, you would hit run, and then it would generate that report. Okay, so that was a crash course in running reports for both student learning and licensure and course evaluations and surveys. Were there any questions that came up while I was demonstrating either of those tools that folks wanted to ask while we had the chance?
I have one question.
Okay.
The login, I know in the beginning of the semester, we could not log in through the login page. You had to go to Canvas to access. Has that now changed so we can access either way?
Actually, you are correct. I believe you can only access through Canvas now that I'm thinking about it.
Okay.
So my apologies. I forgot we had discovered that early on in the semester. But yes, so you should only be able to access it through Canvas at this time.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would just look at it through Canvas, but you'll still be able to do a lot of the same functions that I showed. It'll just be a smaller window to work in.
Okay. Other quick question. How about cross-listed course? Can both department chairs access the course evals for a cross-listed course?
Yes, they should all be, because we pull all the information over from Canvas. So however it is reflected in Canvas, it should be reflected that way in Watermark.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Were there any other questions before we end today's session?
I think I'd also be interested in to see if there's any feedback as far as, this tool itself being any easier or more user-friendly than what you've experienced in Chalk and Wire.
Well, I'd like to respond to that. Yes, this is much easier. The interface is so much better than Chalk and Wire. We have found, as we've been talking to Lita, that there are some things that Watermark doesn't do that we thought it would do, like Chalk and Wire. So we're still trying to figure that out. One is giving students feedback through Watermark is not really possible. I mean, if they submit an assignment into Watermark and we mark up the assignment, give feedback, they can't access it again. So we're kind of experimenting with whether we should do observational assessments so that we can, there's something just kind of missing with that, which we actually could do through Chalk and Wire. So that's kind of the one sticking thing that we have found with Watermark, and I don't know if that's going to change or not.
So do you mean, I'm sorry, Tom, I just want to clarify. So do you mean that when you're in there and you offer feedback, the student can't take that feedback and edit it?
Correct.
I'm wondering if the rollback feature might, I don't know.
Okay. So we're experimenting with it this semester, where Claudia is going to be doing her evaluations as observational assessments, and then just having the students submit the assignment into Canvas, and then she will go into Watermark and fill in the rubrics. I'm going to do the opposite. So I'll have them, and then I will send any feedback to the students either through email or through Canvas. But this was something that we actually could do in Chalk and Wire, where students could read the feedback, the results of the rubric evaluations.
So I think just to clarify, because I believe one of the issues that Claudia was running into was she couldn't mark up the documents themselves. So
Right.
with Watermark, you can only preview the student submissions. Any sort of comments or feedback that you wanted to add, you had to say highlight text within the activity or use the feedback box in order to enter feedback for the student, or enter any comments on the rubric. So in terms of, highlighting or, circling specific things within a document for that students submit, you can't do that. That's what you're driving at, right, Tom?
Yeah, again, some of our documents, some of the students are submitting long reflections, or I have a lot of assignments that have to be done in a very specific way, and so giving them feedback over those assignments is pretty important. Fortunately, most of those are not assignments that are going into Watermark, but there are a few where that is the case. And so like I said, when we talk to you, we're going to figure out what makes it work. It's just, this is kind of a weird part of Watermark that I'm not quite sure I understand, but we can work with it.
Okay. Well, thanks for bringing that up, because I'm sure that's something else that folks have been wondering about as well. So that's good to talk out, and I'm sure we'll continue to grow and learn with this tool, as we're using it more and more. Were there any other questions or things that I could clarify that were discussed in today's demo, or even personal reflections or something on Watermark?
I guess I actually just had a quick question. So if they do an valuation in some way, I'm more so speaking on like the student teaching. I know that's a little bit different.
Mhm.
And you're doing an evaluation, after they've completed it, they can't make any changes to that evaluation. Is that correct? Or could they go back and make changes to that?
If the withdrawal option is available to them, they can withdraw the submission and make any changes they need to and resubmit it.
Okay.
If they don't see the withdraw option, the mentor or supervisor can pass it and can send it back to them or request a revision. So then that way they can make any changes that they need to make for their evaluation.
Gotcha. Okay.
Great
Thank-
question.
And if I can just follow up on Sophia's question, the evaluator themselves, do we have that set up for, and this is very specific, but the final student teaching evaluations to have that revision resubmit option? And if not, can we?
I'm pretty sure I had that set up. I will
Okay.
double check after the call.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right. If there aren't any other further questions, I guess we will go ahead and sign off. But thank you everybody for joining us for today's session. I hope it was informative, and it's a tool that you'll come to love, or at least, find an easier experience with than the days of chalk and wire. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to us at onlinelearning@stros.edu, or all of our emails, so you can always just email us directly. Once again, thank you for joining us, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Have a good one,
Thank
everyone.
you.